Hello, I want to make a slightly different video today on a different subject to the usual. This is actually something I've really wanted to do for years, and it's for my own information. It's taken a little while to set up, so hopefully it will also be useful to somebody else. We'll see. I just want to see how some crossbows compare when you test their penetration to the statistics that are published when people are selling them to you. Used to fire crossbows quite a bit. Don't get the chance to now because I have so many hobbies I try to maintain and something has to go, and crossbows was the second one to fall by the wayside in my case. The first one was flying quadcopters, which I haven't done for a very long time. I've got 5 different types of crossbow here, quite wide ranging in power. I'll put a table up on the screen now that will give you their basic statistics. To begin with, we have your standard pistol crossbow. These are toys. Doesn't mean you play with them, they're dangerous. You mustn't point one at somebody. And if you do, you're probably going to be in a lot of trouble with the police. I've been using crossbows on and off for about 4 years, maybe longer now. Not once has a single bolt left the bounds of this property, and that's what you must do. If a bolt or a arrow from a crossbow goes over a hedge, you are very probably going to be in trouble. You mustn't use them for self-defense in the UK because our laws don't work that way, and the only way you should plan to defend yourself if you were subject to a home invasion in Britain is to make sure everybody in your house knows which room to head to, where you've got a door that can be locked and you've got a phone ready to call the police when you're safely behind that door. Crossbows are not for self-defense in this country. They're going to be banned very soon anyway, so one way or another they aren't something that you should have for that purpose, and I thought I'd better make this video before I can't make it, because you're not allowed to have them in your home anymore. Now, your basic pistol crossbow costs less than £30. This is by Anglo Arms. I don't have the box it came in. I can't find this online anymore, so when I've put the FPS at 175 on the table, that's just the introductory FPS for most £80 pull pistol crossbows. I've also got to test this, which is, I believe, was called a Tomcat. This is what made me want to do this test. These both have £80 prods on them. That's the part that is pulled back when you pull on the string. It's where all the power is. They're almost identical. And I once asked somebody to explain to me how some of them can apparently have much higher FPS. This one apparently 235 FPS and this one 175. Well, if the power being generated is the same, very close, how is that possible? One person told me, he talked about the design. It didn't make a lot of sense to me. I think he was trying to tell me that the power stroke is greater, and that means the power stroke is how much of the length the arrow is traveling across the rail. For how much of the length it's travelling on the rail, does it have a string in contact that's still imparting energy into it? The thing is, I can't see that that's different on these two models. We hold them together, we see from the mechanism the point at which they have a clip that holds the string when it's drawn back. Well, it's the same. So apart from the prod being slightly differently shaped, my expectation is that these will penetrate to the same degree, and that's what we'll find out. And I have a couple of slightly better, more powerful crossbows as well. The most powerful I have up to is £175 pull. You don't need more than that for target shooting, especially not when you're limited to less than 200 feet, as I am. You can't hunt anything in this country, so the only time you'll really fire a crossbow at long range is if you know a club that allow you to use crossbows, and a lot of them don't. A lot of archery clubs will be horrified if you turn up with a crossbow and they won't let you join in. And the only other possibility is if you know a friendly farmer who will let you use his land. That would be possible around here, and when I was more interested in firing crossbows, I thought I might approach one and see if I could pay them a bit of money to do that, but it's not that important to me, so it's fallen by the wayside. I won't be doing that. I'm going to test the crossbow, each crossbow, by firing at this stack of sheets of cardboard. It's about 2mm cardboard, 32 sheets of it here, and I am gambling on that being enough to stop all the bolts. It might not be. The only test I've done is firing a bolt from this very small crossbow, weak crossbow, to a piece of card I taped to my squat stand, and it went through 3 sheets very quickly. I didn't think it would. I've got 32 here. I'm sure that will stop these. The only thing I'm basing my estimations on is these boxes I use as stops behind targets, and they're packed solid with cardboard, and even the most powerful doesn't go halfway through that. So I think there's a fair chance that 32 sheets will stop the bolt from the more powerful ones, and that's exactly what we're going to find out without too much time wasted. First of all, let's just take a shot at the target itself. I do prefer the crossbows that you don't have to cock by pulling them back yourself. They call them sometimes automatic cocking. Well, it's not automatic because you do it yourself. It's manual. It just has a lever to do it. I like the mechanisms. Even this very simple device, I think it's great, a bit of engineering. It wouldn't have helped them much in medieval times because the crossbows were so much more powerful. You need a windlass. There'd be no point at shooting anyone with this. Even their ordinary decorative tunic would stop a bolt from penetrating. But I think it's great engineering, and I think you might consider getting one of these. It's essentially like playing darts. As long as you've got a safe place to shoot it, it's like playing darts, but I think a little bit more fun. I have sometimes shot them in contests with family members, and it's good fun. Now, you've got to be very careful what you choose to shoot with a crossbow in this day and age. If you have a target that has a likeness of anybody's face on it, you're probably in trouble, because everybody's incredibly sensitive. Taking offence has become sometimes an occupation, sometimes a very well-paying profession. So you've got to be very careful. I think, though, hopefully, you're still allowed to shoot red monkeys. Let's think about that for a minute.
Who killed your uncle, boy? That monkey!
Given that, I think we can say they're quite fair targets. This is just a check that the backstop is going to do the job, and it is. That's a 130-pound pull crossbow, and the arrow went in about that far. Now the card is packed quite solidly there. Without it being packed solidly, that would cover 13 sheets out of 32. I'm not entirely sure these will stop all the bolts, but we'll find out. And if I have to do this experiment again, I will. Although taping all this card together took a long time. I've been doing it between squat sets over a few weeks, and it's not as fast a job as you might think. I don't think it's really worth having a close-up. Each sheet has folded card on the side, so the distance between them is identical. And the point is, If I just fire it into these boxes packed with card, you won't see how many have been penetrated through, but here you can quite clearly see. Before going any further, let's see if I can put this up here on this saw bench. That's it. So whatever happens, there's no chance of the bolts going out the back. That will be okay. To begin with, I did think of firing from further away. It's quite pathetic to shoot at something inches in front of it, but the reasons I'm not going to is, one, if you're going at an angle, then you're penetrating more cardboard. It adds another factor, my accuracy, into the test, whereas if I'm going to be about 6 inches away, then each one has the same distance to travel before first contact. In particular with the very small ones, they really are very weak, the 80-pound prod crossbows. When you fire over about 10 foot, the bolt doesn't fly straight to the target. You actually have to calibrate the sights, and you have to point up a bit, and it goes up and then starts to drop before it hits the target. So there are many more factors involved in precisely what the arrow does when it contacts. So I think the best way to do it is to be very close to it. It's no kind of a test of marksmanship of any sort, but it should give an accurate result. Excuse me. It's been very hot and I've been drinking a lot of hydration liquid, especially when exercising. First, here is the basic pistol crossbow. When I looked earlier, there was one called Cobra for £22. There's another one called the Cobra on this list, so I've just called it your basic pistol crossbow. And I've not done this before. If this goes through half of the card, then the test is completely invalid and I'll have to begin again another time. There's 4 squares. I'll use the bottom left for both of the pistol crossbows because there's not much expected from any of them. Now let me make sure that the distance is the same. I'm going to use a marker pen to do that. It's about 5 inches. I will move that before firing. Right, that's not very far at all, which is to be expected. I can't, just wondering if I need to get something to look in there, something like a ruler. I don't. It's gone through 3 sheets of card, and you can see 3mm of the point sticking through the 3rd sheet. Surprised me a bit. When I tested it, as I mentioned earlier, on a squat stand, I had 3 pieces of card pushed together quite tightly and it went straight through them, and actually it hit the squat stand and it broke the bolt. I suppose it was stretched more tightly. I think it also shows us that when the bolt has penetrated the first bit of card, moving through the card with the shaft actually creates a lot of friction. So it hasn't reached the 3rd, so it hasn't reached the 4th. So your basic pistol crossbow penetrates 3 2mm sheets of cardboard, and that's it. Once again, they're never to be toyed with in any way at all, but they're not dangerous. If somebody was wearing a warm winter jacket, it would not penetrate. I'm not going to try, but I don't think this would penetrate a person's skin anyway. Very dangerous to the eyes, very dangerous to the face, but it's not a very dangerous item. Still, the rules are, once you've loaded it, you point it downwards, and you don't take the safety off until you're pointing it at a target you intend to shoot at, and you definitely don't pull the trigger until you're ready to shoot. Safety off. And use that marker pen a bit lower. Okay, Well, that's interesting. Ah, and it's not quite what I expected. It's gone more than halfway through. There's a lesson for me. I thought this would be only slightly more powerful than this. Sorry, this only slightly more powerful than this, if any more powerful at all. But that appears to not be the case. Now let's have a look. Right, the tip's just visible there. So it's gone through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21. It's gone through 22 sheets of cardboard. And I'm quite surprised. So much so that I'm going to take a second shot with this. See if anything different happened. This has a string that will break any minute now. I don't care about it enough to replace it. I've got the strings, but there's no point. I think the string will either break or not, and as long as it doesn't break, then it is imparting the full energy from the prod into the bolt. Safety off. Distance. Check. Right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's gone through 4 now, but no further. Nothing compared to the penetration of the other one. And I'm surprised. I might take another shot with the other one. I suppose there's no harm in doing that, as long as I'm careful that I don't go into the same hole. It doesn't damage the card overall. Let's see if this does much the same. Distance. It's disappeared right into it again, and it's gone 1 sheet further. I think that was 18 before. Let's check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Oh, it's gone through 23 now, so it would have been 22 before. I was close to only making 22 sheets. Good job I didn't. And I've got a horrible feeling this test won't be valid because the heavier crossbows are going to go straight through it. Well, I'm still learning something about the relative power of crossbows. This one has a lever to cock it with, 130 pound pull prod, and it takes a little bit of effort there. Not a lot, but you can feel that you're doing it. I think older people would have trouble with it. Okay, let's use this marker. It's only approximate, but it makes sure the range is about the same each time. Okay, let's see what this. Disaster struck. The microphones ran out of power. I've learned in the past to make sure the camera doesn't run out of power and that the microphones are on. I didn't think when they indicate full power they could run out of power that quickly, but it's done. Lost half the video. Maybe it's a good thing because I do tend to talk a lot. I didn't want to abandon it, didn't want to do it again because I've already used the target, and it took a little while, so I've shown the start and I'll just talk about the results, which you should be able to see on the screen here. As already mentioned, I'm surprised. You get the basic pistol crossbow, which only penetrated 3 sheets and then 4 sheets, and then the Tomcat, both 80 pound pull, penetrated 22 and 23. That's the only thing that's of much importance as far as my curiosity goes. Why it's important is because, in particular, they both use this very small bolt, whereas when you get to the Siege 3000 and the Cobra RX and then the Jaguar traditional full-size crossbow, there is a difference in size and weight. This is good for the Cobra RX and the Siege 3000. This is a standard crossbow arrow, and it's quite a lot heavier. At some point I'll probably make a slightly more serious video testing the heavier ones, and then I'll weigh these. I'm not going to bother to go and get a scale now. That's important, of course. The Jaguar 175 crossbow has lower FPS than either the Cobra or the Siege. It's actually a bit lower than the Tomcat. Of course, when something has far more mass, when you compare these two, it can take a great deal more energy and would impart a lot more energy to the target and penetrate the target more effectively. As always, it's obvious I'm not a physicist. That's really all there was to get from this. Of course, would expect the heavier 3 crossbows to penetrate more according to their power of pull, although not necessarily proportional FPS, and the larger arrows with greater mass. The only thing I'm going to do now is take a couple more shots, because you can't have a crossbow video where I've only handled a couple of little toy pistol crossbows, and because of the battery running out, you didn't even see what I did to the target with 2 shots, one with the RX and one with the Siege, right on the top of the head there. Just for a couple more minutes before finishing, I'll take a few more shots at the target. I don't like to do it from too far away because I've got the shed as a backstop, but there's only so much that will do. With this or the Siege 3000, I don't think an arrow would go in and out the other side. With the 175 full-size crossbow, it probably would quite easily. First time I fired this, I had a stack of magazines making a nice solid target, missed it. It really was the first shot, and it went through the door of the shed and I couldn't find it, and I spent a while trying to find it, thinking it might have bounced off or something. I was worried because it doesn't look good if you lose arrows in that way, but in the end it was inside the shed, and I was very grateful to find that out. This is a really good piece of equipment. That said, it could be slightly stronger. There's a man on YouTube who makes crossbow videos, and he's made a version where he reinforced it. He also used 2 prods, so that gives you 260 pound pull. I'd have difficulty with that. Yes, I'm not sure I could do it actually. This is enough for me. If I was going to spend a long time in the wilderness, in a country where you can hunt, then this is what I would choose. Easy to cock. It's got a nice iron sight on it, whereas the other one, the Siege 3000, has no sight at all if you don't use a telescopic sight. Let me just take a shot. Can get a few more in at the red monkey. At the red monkey. Stop it. At the brightly coloured simian that will not be named. And I'm at about 20 feet. I'll embarrass myself now. And I barely hit it. That's not very good, is it? Let's have one more try. I feel a bit nervous because of the danger of having an arrow go astray. Let me try a little more to the left, see if I can compensate for that. And that was in the middle. That's not so bad. Right, just before I finish, because it took a while to bring these things down, let me take a shot with the Siege 3000. And it didn't leave the tip in, and that's good. That's one of the worst things that happens. You can probably buy, I don't mean the tip that can be unscrewed, I mean this mount that goes into. And if you lose that, the arrow's useless. Now, this is a bit more powerful. You could probably shoot a deer with this. Don't think you'd want to try a boar. It's hard enough to cock that I'll strain just a little bit. That's also why I have the stock on it. I don't like the stock really. Although when I shot the smaller one then, I felt the stock might have helped me aim a bit. This is a good piece of equipment. The prod is like a compound bow. Disadvantage of that is if you need to restring it, you probably have to get it sent off. When I first got mine, after about 4 or 5 shots, the string broke and the supplier told me they have to replace it. But I know, unlike on a lot, you can adjust the power of these cams, the power of the springs that are powering it. So I think if you spend enough time, if you know what you're doing, you probably could replace it without the professional press that they use for these things. Who knows? There's no iron sight included on this, which is rather annoying. There's a telescopic sight that comes with it. Feels to me like overkill for shooting in your garden. And as I mentioned, I don't have a lot of time necessarily for other things, so I don't make as many videos as I would like to. So pulling the scope in, learning to use it, half hour, I don't have that. So I prefer to just line up an iron sight. Can't do that here, but you've got this rail for attaching the sights to, and you can see through it, and you can quite easily, you can't see through it there because there's nothing white behind it, but you can look and you can check that it's in line, a bit like looking down a corridor, and when you can't see any of the mounting points in front of the rear one, you know it's fairly straight. Let's see if that works. If not, I'm probably going to put a new hole in the shed door. I thought it's worth showing this. It's a good, I like it. You can get far better crossbows, far more powerful. You're really paying a bit of money for the quick cocking mechanism. You can pay a lot more money for quick cocking mechanisms, including motorised ones on £2,000, £3,000 crossbows. You'd have to have a very good reason to buy one of those and not a gun. Been a bit careless here. It's cocked, it's loaded, and I've been pointing it around. Shouldn't do that. It's not terribly dangerous when the safety's on, but I'm going to stop it anyway, because if an arrow goes flying off, there's no chance it could hit somebody, but you still don't want an arrow ending up off your property. You really, really don't. Okay, let's have a go. Finish that monkey off once and for all, if I can. Now I'm being careful, so I know I'll hit the backstop. If not, oh dear, that's a bit high, isn't it? If not the monkey, well, that went far too high. I'm not going to take another shot because I'm supposed to be deadlifting at the moment. I just had to do something to finish off a video after the microphone ran out the last time. I'm going to think about getting some ballistic gel and doing a proper test on the 3 larger ones. Don't think I'll buy any more crossbows. At one point I wanted to. They're going to be banned very soon. Not a lot of point. I dare not even think about how soon they're going to ban swords, because I do have quite a few swords. That's it. Wanted to do the test. The test was really on the very small 80 FPS, 80 pound pole crossbows, and one of them is significantly more powerful than the other. Don't really know why, because they have the same power stroke length. So I might have to look into that. If you can tell me, please do comment and let me know. That's it then. Thanks for watching. My name's Mark. See you next time. Cheers.